and add a few new paintings to my gallery, and then I'll brush and brush and brush and brush my hair. I don't know, Tangled was on my way. And wandering and wandering and wandering and wandering, where will my life begin? Tomorrow night, the lights will appear. All right, I'm done. Hi, y'all. You know what time it is. Get into it. Yes, we are back with another installment of Storytime with Chris. As I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max relax and chillaxing time, in between time, mean time, scheme time, study time, break time, CP time. Anytime that you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, adventure, and music, and many, many more in between. Hi, y'all. Let's get ready to read the final chapter of Greenwitch, and then we're going to go on a break for next week, but then we'll be back the following week to start the next book in the Dark is Rising sequence by Susan Cooper, which is The Grey King, which honestly, out of the 5 books, that is one of my second favorites out of the 5. The first would be The Dark is Rising, because that's the book I was introduced to this series. I was so deeply involved in that book, I begged my mom to let me go see the movie. Oh gosh, it was called The Dark is Rising, The Seeker, and honestly, it's not a great movie, but it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. I would give it a solid B-, if anything. I would give it a solid, B- would be the best way to describe it. I'm glad I got to see it. I'm glad I got to experience it, and because like I said, I was super obsessed with the book. And I was like, I gotta watch the movie. And then the movie ended up not being as great as I anticipated. But that's okay. Maybe somebody else will take the reins, Peter Jackson, and totally adapt those 5 books into a movie franchise. That'd be dope. Or a TV show. That actually, you could totally do the Dark is Rising sequence in a series of seasons. Because you could do season 1, Oversea and Understow. Season 2 would be The Dark is Rising. Season 3 would be Greenwitch. Season 4 would be The Grey King. And Season 5 would be the Silver on the Tree. So yeah, you could totally make that happen. Alrighty. Let's go. Chapter 13. In the farmyard in front of the house, a great round piece of granite was set into the ground. An old mill wheel, worn and grass-fringed. On its bright-flecked gray surface they set the grail, and gathered around as Merriman took from his pocket the battered little cylinder that held the manuscript. He slid out the small roll of parchment, its edges cracked and flaking, and unrolled it to lie on the uneven stone. "And this is the second time for looking," he said. The children picked up stones for the grass and laid them gently on the edges to hold the parchment flat. Then, instinctively, they drew to one side and to let Merriman and Captain Tom study the Grail and manuscript together. Barney, next to Merriman, suddenly realized that Will was standing quiet and unmoving behind him. He ducked quickly aside. "Here," he said. "Come on." The golden grail glittered in the sunlight. The engraving on its sides was clear and clean, but the smooth beaten gold of the inside surface, as Simon had said, was blackened and dark. Will looked now at the close, delicate engraving for the first time in his life, seeing the panels filled with vivid scenes of men running, fighting, crouching behind shields, tunic-clad, strangely helmeted men brandishing swords and shields. The pictures woke deep memories in him of things he had forgotten he had ever known. He looked closer at the words and letters interwoven between the figures, and the last panel on the Grail, completely filled with words in the same cipher language that no living scholar had been able to understand, and like the other 2 old ones, he began methodically to look upon the marks of the old manuscript to the marks on the Grail, and gradually the interweaving became clear. Hold on, because I'm not liking this lighting. There we go. Now we can see me. Okay. Not over flooded with light. Yeah, vocals. Will found himself breathing faster as the meaning of the inscription began to take shape in his mind. Starting at the manuscript, Merriman said slowly and painfully, as if he were spelling out a hard lesson. "On the day of the dead, when the year 2 dies, must the youngest open the oldest hills. Through the door of the birds where the breeze breaks, there fire shall fly from the raven boy, and the silver eyes that see the wind, and the light shall have the harp of gold." He stopped. His face was tight with concentration. Not easy, he said to himself. The pattern is hard to keep. Captain Tom's leaned on his heavy stick, peering at another panel of the Grail. He said softly, his ancient accent cradling the words. By the pleasant lake the sleepers lie, on Catfan's way where the kestrels call. Though grim from the grey king shadows fall, yet singing the golden harp shall guide, to break their sleep and bid them rise. Will knelt down between the granite slab and turned the Grail again. Slowly he read aloud. When light from the lost land shall return, 6 sleepers shall ride, 6 sides shall burn, and where the midsummer tree grows tall, by Pendragon's sword the dark shall fall. Merriman stood upright. And the last line of all will be the spell, he said, looking at Will. The deep-set dark eyes bored into his mind. Remember, Yemenet yer minedod yinkanu Aki mer algravedis indad. The mountains are singing and the lady comes. Remember. Which, if I'm not mistaken, that line that I just read, which, forgive me for my pronunciation, because I probably butchered a couple of the words, so forgive me. This is definitely reminiscent of the Welsh language, the language of the country of Wales. Wales is W-A-L-E-S. It is a country within the British Isles that was very prominent. One of their major figures in their flag is a red dragon, and I love that. I love the connection to medieval cultural folklore. I just think it's awesome. And I've actually read a Welsh fairy tale series here on this channel. I read all 5 books of the Prydain Chronicles, the Black Cauldron, the Book of Three, the Castle of Lear, the Tarn Wanderer, the High King. That series was so much fun to read, y'all, and it definitely deserves its own franchise. Even though Disney did a dark fantasy animated movie of the Black Cauldron, which is still one of my favorite movies of all time, they should totally adapt into a live-action series. But that's another conversation for another day. He leaned down to the rock, moved aside the stone weights, and took up the small curling manuscript on one big hand. As if the Druze did not exist at all, he looked down at Will and Captain Tom's. You have it all, he said. Yes, said Will. Safe remembered, Captain Tom said. In one sharp movement, Merriman clutched his fist, and the little roll of stiff, broken-edged parchment crumbled instantly into tiny fragments, small as gravel, light as dust. He opened his long fingers and swung his arm wide. In a dusty shower, the pieces flew away in every direction into oblivion. The children cried out sharply, Gummery! Jane stared at him, appalled. You've ruined the whole thing! No, Merriman said. But you can't understand what the Grail says without it. No one can. Simon's face was creased with perplexity. It'll be just as much of a mystery as it was before. Not to us, Captain Tom said. He eased himself down to sit on the granite slab and took up the Grail, turning it in his fingers to see the sunlight glinting on the engraved sides. We know now what is in the hidden message of the Grail. It will shape the next 12 months of our lives and help us to save men from great terror very soon for all time. And now that we have it in our minds, we shall never forget. I've forgotten it already, Barney said plaintively. Everything except a bit about a golden harp and a grey king. How can you have a grey king? Of course you've forgotten about it, Captain Tom said. That was the intention. He smiled at Barney. And we do not even need an enchantment to help you forget as our friend from the dark did. We can rely on the mortality of your memory. And you don't have to worry about whether anyone else will remember, Simon said, slowly understanding, because no one else will ever hear or see. Jane said sadly, It seems a pity that the poor Greenwitch's secret should just be thrown away. It has served its purpose, Merriman said. His deep voice rose a little. Sorry, I had a message coming through. Sorry. Hold on. Okay. Sorry about that. It has served its purpose, Merriman said. His deep voice rose a little, gained a height of ceremony. Hold on, because my mic is a little too high up. Hello? Oh, that's a little too low. Right there, that's perfect. Its high purpose for what it was made so very long ago, it has set us the next great step along the road to keep the dark from rising. And there is nothing more important than that quest. That last bit you said from the Grail in the manuscript, Barney said. What language was it in? Welsh, Merriman said. Is the last part of the quest in Wales? Yes. Are we going to be a part of it? Merriman said. Wait and see. They lay in variously abandoned attitudes in the sunshine on the beach, recovering from an enormous picnic lunch. Simon and Barney were lazily tossing a ball to and fro without bothering to stand up. Bill Stanton was eyeing them in the nearby cricket bat with nostalgic optimism. Just wait, he said to his sunbathing wife. We'll show you just how exactly it's played in a little while. Great, said Fran Stanton sleepily. Jane, lying on her back, blinking up at the blue sky, propped herself up on her elbows and looked out to sea. The sand was hot against her skin. It was a beautiful, sunny, breezeless Cornish day of a rare and special kind. I'm just going to go for a little walk, she said to nobody in particular, and over the dry sand she went across the long golden beach towards the rocks that glistened with low-tide seaweed at the foot of Kenmare Head. The headland reared up before her, grassy slope changing to jagged gray cliff. At the very tip the cliffs towered in a sheer wall against the sky. Jane's head was full of memories. She began to walk over the rocks, wincing a little as her bare feet, not yet toughened by summer, pressed against rough rock. Out here last year she and Barney and Simon had reached the peak of their adventure, the achieving of the Grail that had lain for hundreds of years in a cavern, the entrance covered totally by water at all but the lowest tides. Out here they had fled from the pursuing dark with the Grail and the little lead case they had found inside. And out here, she thought, as she reached the furthest point of the rocks, with the waves breaking white at her feet, just here, in the flurry of saving the Grail, the little lead case had plummeted into the waves and down to the bottom of the sea. And the Greenwitch had found it there and made it a precious secret. Jade looked at the deep green water beyond the breaking waves. Goodbye, Greenwitch, she said softly. She unclasped a small silver bracelet that she wore on her wrist, weighed it experimentally in her hand, and drew back her arm to throw it into the sea. A voice said gently behind her, Don't do that. Jade gasped and nearly lost her balance. Swinging around, she saw Will Stanton. Oh, she said, you made me jump. Sorry, Will said. He balanced his way forwards to stand beside her, his bare feet looking very white against the dark seaweed patching the rocks. Jade looked at his pleasant round face and then at the bracelet in her hand. I know it sounds stupid, she said reluctantly, but I wanted to give the Greenwitch another secret to keep, instead of the one we took in my dream. She paused, embarrassed, but went gamely on. In my dream, I said, I will give you another secret. And the Greenwitch said in that big, sad, booming voice, too late, and just disappeared. She was silent, gazing at the sea. I only said don't, Will said, because I don't think your bracelet would really do. It's silver, isn't it? And the seawater would turn it all black and dirty looking. Oh, Jade said forlorn. Will shifted his footing on the wet rock and felt in his pocket. He said, glancing briefly at Jade and then away, and I knew you'd want to give the Greenwitch something. I wonder if this would do? Jade looked. Lying on Will's outstretched palm was a small, green-patched lead case that had held the manuscript, the Greenwitch's first secret. Will took it and pulled off the cap and shaking out a small object into her hand. Jade saw a strip of yellow metal gleaming with some words engraved on it very small. It looks like gold, she said. It is, said Will. Low carat, but gold lasts forever, even down there. Jade read out, Power from the Greenwitch, lost beneath the sea. That's just a line from a poem, Will said. Is it really? It's perfect. She ran her finger along the bright gold. Where did you get it? I made it. You made it? Jane stared and turned to him with such astonishment that Will laughed. My father's a jeweler. He's teaching me to engrave things. I go and help him in his shop sometimes after work. But you must have done this before you came down here. Before you ever knew we were going to meet the Greenwitch, Jane said slowly. How do you know what to make, what to write? Just a lucky chance, I suppose, Will said, and there was a polite finality in his tone that reminded Jane instantly of Merriman. It was the voice that forbade any questioning. Oh. Will put the small golden strip into the case and fitted the cap on tightly, then he handed it to her. Here's your secret, Greenwitch, Jane said, and she flung it into the sea. The little case vanished into the waves, their foam curling round the seaweed-fringed rocks. In the sunlight, the water glittered like shattered glass. Thank you, Will Stanton, Jane said. She paused, looking at him. You aren't quite like the rest of us, are you? Not quite, said Will. Jane said, I hope we shall see you again. One day. Will said, I'm pretty sure you will. Mr. and Mrs. Penhallow stood waving from the steps of the cottage as they left. Merriman to put the 4 children on the London train, the Stantons on a visit to Truro for the day. Bye! Goodbye! Good journey to you! Goodbye! The cars disappeared across the quay. Overhead, seagulls wheeled and cried. Professor did find what he came for this time, I do believe, Mr. Penhallow said, sucking pensively at his pipe. That little go-cup from last year that was stolen in London, eh? But there was more, I fancy. Mrs. Penhallow gazed at the point where Merriman's car had rounded the corner, with speculation in her eyes. More of what? 'Twas no accident he came down here at Greenwitch time. He'd have done that before. This was Captain Tom's first Greenwich making at home for a good as many years, too. I don't know, Walter, I don't know, but something strange had been going on. You're human dreaming, Mr. Penhallow said indulgently. That I'm not, but that young Jane was one night. That same night everyone was dreaming. The night the whole village was hill-written. Such talk there was next morning of things best forgotten. And that morning I was right near the bedrooms going about my business when young Jane woke up, and she let out such a hoot and was out of her room like a wild thing running to her brothers. So she been dreaming, sure, Mr. Penhallow said. A bad un by the side of it. What of that? What of it? 'Twasn't her dreaming that stays with me. Mr. Penhallow looked out at the quiet harbour and the drifting gulls. 'Twas her room, clean as a pinhead as it was the night before. She am a neat little maid, but everywhere in that room that morning there was a great mess of little twigs and leaves, hawthorn leaves and rowan, and everywhere a great smell of the sea. And that is the end of Greenwitch. Told you, it's shorter than the rest of the books. It's a little side quest that is part of the main plot. But as always, I love you and appreciate you. Thank you all so much for joining me. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.